In a world where identity and faith often collide, the question arises, is it possible to be both gay and Muslim? This inquiry delves deep into the intricate interplay between Islamic teachings, which guide over 1 billion believers, and the identities of LGBTQ Muslims. By scrutinizing religious texts, examining diverse theological perspectives, and highlighting available resources for LGBTQ Muslims, this narrative aims not to resolve but to deepen understanding and spark nuanced dialogue. Through this exploration, we endeavor to shed light on the complex dimensions of faith and personal identity, inviting a rich exchange of ideas and fostering inclusivity within the broader Muslim experience. As we navigate through this dialogue, we will engage with the core Islamic texts that address or are interpreted as addressing homosexuality. We will unpack the stories, such as that of Prophet Lot, which have historically been cited in discussions of Islamic morality and sexual behavior. Our exploration will not stop at textual analysis. We will also consider the socio-cultural and historical contexts that shape the interpretation of these texts today. Islam, like other major world religions, is grounded in divine scriptures that its followers believe are the ultimate guidelines issued by God. The Quran stands as the paramount source of spiritual and moral guidance for Muslims, complemented by the hadiths, actions, and approvals of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. These texts form the bedrock of Islamic law and ethics, and are essential for understanding the faith's stance on various issues, including homosexuality. While the Quran does not use the modern term homosexuality, it addresses the behaviors associated with it through the narrative of Prophet Lot, paralleling the biblical account. In this narrative, particularly in verses such as Surah Al-Araf, chapter 7, verse 80 to 81, Lot chastises his people with the words, "Do you commit lewdness, such as no people in creation ever committed before you?" This admonishment has been historically interpreted by many Islamic scholars as a denunciation of same-sex sexual acts, viewing them as contrary to the natural order and divine intentions. In Islamic jurisprudence, which extrapolates daily life rulings from the Quran and Hadith, these acts are traditionally seen as sinful. The legal stance in classical fiqh is derived from these and other related texts, leading to a general prohibition of homosexual activities. For instance, jurists have referred to other verses and hadiths that emphasize the importance of marriage between a man and a woman as the foundation for family and societal structure. However, the interpretation of these texts is not monolithic and varies significantly among Islamic scholars, cultures, and communities across the world. A growing number of contemporary scholars and intellectuals are calling for a reassessment of these interpretations, suggesting that historical contexts, as well as evolving understandings of human sexuality, should influence how these texts are understood today. They argue that the essence of Islam's moral teachings is justice, compassion, and mercy, and that these values should guide the treatment of all individuals, including those from the LGBTQ community. Furthermore, it is important to distinguish between the act and the inclination. Some modern scholars differentiate between homosexual orientation, which may not be chosen or changeable, and homosexual acts, proposing that the former incurs no sin without the latter. This nuanced view fosters a more inclusive approach within the Muslim community, aiming to balance adherence to Islamic teachings with the realities faced by LGBTQ Muslims. Homosexuality is often considered haram in Islam due to specific teachings on family structure and sexual behavior intended to maintain societal order and ensure communal well-being. In traditional Islamic jurisprudence, which draws from the Quran and the Hadith, homosexual acts are viewed as a deviation from the natural order established by Allah. Furthermore, the concept of natural order is significant in Islamic theology. It suggests that Allah has instilled a natural disposition towards certain moral and social behaviors in humans. Acts that are seen as contravening this natural disposition, including homosexual acts, are thus viewed as misalignments with one's inherent nature as ordained by God. However, the discussion among contemporary Islamic scholars introduces a crucial distinction between homosexual orientation and homosexual acts. While traditional teachings condemn the acts, there is a growing viewpoint among some scholars that the orientation itself, being an intrinsic characteristic that does not involve choice or action, should not be subject to moral censure. This perspective is based on principles of justice and compassion, which are also vital to Islamic teachings. These scholars argue that condemning individuals for traits they did not choose and cannot change is inconsistent with the mercy and justice emphasized by Islam. In summary, while traditional Islamic law generally views LGBTQ acts as contrary to the divine will, there is an emerging dialogue within the faith that seeks to address these issues with greater empathy and respect for individual dignity, grounded in the broader Islamic principles of compassion and justice. This ongoing theological reflection represents a significant development in how Islam interacts with contemporary issues of identity and human rights. Many LGBTQ Muslims face a dual challenge, reconciling their faith with their sexual identity while dealing with societal and sometimes communal backlash. Their stories shed light on the internal and external conflicts that arise from trying to adhere to their faith while honoring their true selves. For instance, some recount experiences of spiritual isolation, fear of ostracism, and the challenge of finding a place in traditional religious spaces. These personal struggles are often juxtaposed with the teachings of Islam, which emphasize compassion, mercy, and justice. Progressive Islamic scholars and some community leaders argue that these foundational principles should guide how Muslims respond to LGBTQ individuals within their communities. They suggest a re-examination of texts that have traditionally been used to ostracize LGBTQ individuals, advocating for a more inclusive interpretation that considers the overall ethos of the Quran's message of universal dignity and respect. Islamic scholars who support a more inclusive approach often cite the hadith where Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "All of my community will be forgiven except those who sin openly." This is interpreted by some as a call to privacy and a directive against the judgment of others, suggesting that matters of personal morality are between individuals and God. This perspective supports the idea of a more personal and less publicly punitive approach to understanding different lifestyles within the Muslim community. Additionally, these scholars reference the Quranic verse, "We have created you from male and female, and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another." Chapter 49, verse 13. This verse is often interpreted as a divine commandment to foster understanding and tolerance among diverse groups, which can be extended to include diverse sexual orientations. The narrative also includes how different mosques and Islamic centers are beginning to address these issues. Some have started to offer special programs and inclusive services that aim to welcome all believers, regardless of their sexual orientation. Examples of such initiatives include dialogues and support groups specifically tailored for LGBTQ Muslims, aiming to provide safe spaces where they can express their faith and identity without fear. Despite the difficulties, many LGBTQ Muslims continue to find ways to live authentically while maintaining their faith. Their stories are not just tales of struggle, but also of significant courage, hope, and spiritual discovery. They reflect a broader movement within the Muslim world towards embracing a more compassionate and inclusive practice of Islam that acknowledges the complexity of human identity. By hearing these voices and understanding their context within Islamic teachings, the broader Muslim community can move towards a more empathetic approach that respects the faith and personal journeys of all its members. This section not only highlights the challenges, but also celebrates the resilience and faithfulness of LGBTQ Muslims, encouraging ongoing dialogue and mutual respect within the diverse global Muslim community. Amidst the challenges faced by LGBTQ Muslims, an increasing array of resources and support systems has emerged to assist them. These organizations provide essential advocacy, create safe spaces, and foster an environment where individuals can explore their identities while maintaining their faith. This support is vital for helping individuals reconcile their sexual and religious identities, which can often be a source of significant personal conflict. Key organizations such as the Muslim Alliance for Sexual and Gender Diversity in the US, Iman in the UK, and Salam Canada are at the forefront of this effort. These groups work tirelessly to advocate for the rights of LGBTQ Muslims, challenging both societal and intra-community prejudices. They provide platforms for voices that are often silenced within traditional Islamic spaces, facilitating discussions and education on the intersectionality of faith and sexual identity. These organizations also play a pivotal role in creating safe, welcoming environments where LGBTQ Muslims can express and explore their identities without fear of condemnation or ostracism. By doing so, they help bridge the gap between Islamic teachings and contemporary understandings of sexual diversity. Spiritual counseling is another crucial element offered by these organizations. Counselors who are knowledgeable about both Islamic teachings and the challenges faced by LGBTQ individuals provide guidance that respects both aspects of a person's identity. This counseling is tailored to help individuals navigate the complexities of living as LGBTQ Muslims, addressing issues of guilt, conflict, and community belonging. Additionally, workshops, support groups, and educational events organized by these groups serve multiple purposes. They educate the wider Muslim community, reducing stigma and promoting a more inclusive understanding of what it means to be Muslim. For LGBTQ Muslims and their families, these programs provide tools and knowledge to deal with societal pressures, familial expectations, and internal conflicts. Within these frameworks, the role of Islamic scholarship cannot be understated. Progressive Muslim scholars often collaborate with these organizations to provide theological backing for inclusivity. They engage in reinterpreting certain aspects of Islamic texts to emphasize the overarching principles of mercy, compassion, and justice within Islam. These scholars contribute to a growing body of Islamic thought that seeks to understand and embrace diversity within the Muslim community. The expansion of resources and support for LGBTQ Muslims is a significant development in contemporary Islamic societies. These efforts are not only about providing support, but are also integral to the ongoing dialogue about the place of LGBTQ individuals within Islam. They highlight the dynamic and evolving nature of Muslim responses to issues of sexual identity, suggesting pathways towards more inclusive and compassionate community practices. As we conclude, it's clear that the question of being gay and Muslim is layered with theological, legal, and personal dimensions. While traditional teachings present challenges, the evolving discussions within the Muslim community show a potential for a more inclusive understanding. By continuing this dialogue, promoting education, and providing support, we can hope to build a more understanding and compassionate environment for all Muslims, regardless of their sexuality. This conversation is just the beginning. For those who seek more information or need support, please look into the resources mentioned in this video and reach out to local or online groups that can provide assistance. Thank you for joining us in this important discussion. Please share this video to help spread awareness and understanding, and don't hesitate to engage in the comments below. Your voice matters in this ongoing dialogue,